one. Hello, and welcome to yet another episode of the Back to the TARDIS podcast, the podcast where we take a look at every single episode of the 2005 revival of BBC's Doctor Who. I'm Jeff.
I'm Skylar.
And I am one of Texas Senator Ted Cruz's 1970s murder victims.
He's the Zodiac Killer, guys! And today we are discussing Series 3, Episode... I don't fucking know. The Infinite Quest. This is a little bit different in that this technically... It came out during Series 3, and it technically has a production code, but it doesn't really count because it was an animated episode that was produced for a companion show on CBBC, which is the kids channel, kind of like PBS Kids, but for BBC. That features David Tennant and Freema Agyeman voicing their characters, and it was originally released in installments of like 3.5 minutes each, and then the version that we both saw is it edited into 1:45-ish minute chunk.
That makes sense. That makes sense because watching it felt very segmented.
Yeah. I'll get onto that. Before we get started, I would just like to say that you'll probably be able to hear a lot of white noise. That is because I am in the great state of Michigan, where we do not have nearly as plentiful air conditioning, and it is summertime, which means it is hot as fuck down here. So I have a fan pointed right at me, and if I turn it off, I will melt alive. So sorry about that. Hopefully next week I can come up with a better solution that might be able to cut it out a little bit. You're stuck with it this week.
Similarly, you might hear me fucking around with my cat because I forgot to kick her out of my room before we started recording. So she's walking around and bothering me.
Yeah. So yeah, what I was gonna say is, it's very much, this episode, I think, this episode feels kind of like, so I guess to flex a little bit of my classic nerd knowledge, to go way back, like, I think First Doctor back. There was, back in the First Doctor era, everything was a lot more serialized. Like, individual episodes had their own titles, even if they were over, like, even if they were just over, like, a... Like, if it was the same overarching story arc, but instead of just being story arc title part 1, part 2, such and such, they'd have their own episode titles. What this reminded me of is, I haven't seen it, but there is a First Doctor story called The Keys of Marinus, which is... Wait, no, is it that one? Or... No, okay, yeah, no. The Chase, or, yeah, The Keys of Marinus, The Chase, and more importantly, the one that I actually meant, that I was actually thinking of, The Daleks' Master Plan, which is 12 episodes long, and in basically every episode, it moves on to, like, a new setting, and, like, there's still an overarching story arc, but there's this sense of, like, everything is segmented up in each episode, and it's just kind of this long, epic journey through one story arc, and it feels like the Infinite Quest is a mini version of that. Like, it feels like they'll introduce something, and in the next 5 to 10 minutes, it'll get resolved, and then they'll move on, which I think is a little bit to its detriment. Like, this is a hard case of 45-minute syndrome, or I guess technically 3.5-minute syndrome, where, like, if this was, like, an hour and a half long, or 2 hours, or whatever, or, like, maybe a little bit more for each segment, or whatever, I don't know, something like that, it would make it feel a lot more cohesive and a little bit less like everything's happening a little bit too fast. But that being said, I appreciate the style, and I think it's something that we don't see very much, and in fact we hadn't seen basically anything of since the 60s. Which is a shame, because I think it's a really interesting idea.
Yeah,
because if you you have a machine that can travel in time and space, what if you had that actually play into individual episodes more, other than just being the MacGuffin of, okay, why is the Doctor here?
Yeah, and even, like, just specifically for this episode, I think all of the places they go to are pretty interesting individually. Like, I don't know, the oil pirates. That's the one that I really liked.
Yeah, the oil pirates that, like, have, like, they're all technically dead for, like, efficiency reasons, or the giant, like, Rick and Morty Season 2 finale-esque prison, or the huge fucking mantis person. Those are all really neat ideas. It would be nice if they spent more than, like, 5-10 minutes on each of them, but okay. If you want to be really creative, go off, I guess.
It takes advantage
I don't know.
Yeah, it takes advantage of the animation medium, which, you know, like, Doctor Who has obviously gotten more of a budget since then, but still, when I look at the, like, giant oil rigs that are just sapping stuff up, or the giant insect, or the prison planet, even looking to, like, this latest series of Doctor Who, which is, like, really polished, like, visually and technically, I'm just like, yeah, no, I couldn't see this, like, working quite as well as it does here. And the last thing I'll say for, like, the praise I'll give it is that not all actors can also do voice acting. And I'm not going to say that David Tennant and Freema are, like,
I think they're pretty good.
Best at it, but, like,
good.
Yeah, it's not like they're, like, they don't sound completely different from their live action counterparts, which is something I have seen happen. So it was good that, like, that never broke the medium for me, I guess. So that was cool.
Yeah, I noticed, like, that voice acting point, I noticed that, like, right away when watching the episode. I was like, oh, like, you know, sonically, it sounds exactly like you would expect from a live action episode. Just, like, the quality of the voices and the way they do their inflections and acting sounds as good as you would expect in a live action episode. And as to the point with the location budget, that also came up in my mind, like, immediately, because, like, obviously when you're doing animation, it's expensive, but doing any location is just as expensive as doing any other location, you know. So you can switch between places a lot easier, and don't have to worry about, like, moving stuff to new places. There's not a location budget, basically. So there's a lot more versatility in moving around like that they just wouldn't have in live action.
Also, some, like, weirdness you can kind of get away with in animation with the stylization, like the Balthazar, I think his name is, just his look would look so, you know, tacky, like almost classical era tacky, but here it's just like, oh yeah, this is an animated character, but it's, like, still treated
also,
like
he's voiced by
he's
voiced by Anthony Stewart Head, so it's the fucking Krillitane principal, or Giles from Buffy the Vampire Slayer. It's the
I
same
did not
guy.
recognize that. That's cool.
Yeah, it is. It's him. So I guess to go into a little bit more detail, so, like, the plot arc for this is that there's pieces to this super old ship called the Infinite, and this very much designated villain named Balthazar, who's played by Anthony Stewart Head, makes the Doctor and Martha go on a quest to find the pieces of this, which sort of sets up your, like, everything happening sort of 5-minute chunks of, like, you do this and then you find a piece and then you move on to the next one and you find a piece and then you move on to the next one and such and such.
Also, on a note of the villain, I like that he's stupid, like, motivation wise, but he's not stupid in how he goes about things, because he like presents the bird as reformed, he places the tracker on her, he gets right to the very end.
Yeah,
it's just like in the end he's way in over his head.
He's stubborn and very focused on this idea of what he thinks this means, not what it actually means, but he's not stupid.
Exactly.
Yeah, I was just thinking as to terms of like the basic setup of the plot, sort of going to different locations and getting pieces of a thing. It sort of made me think that could work for like an overarching season plot, honestly, like some sort of season quest.
I mean, they even did that one time with the Fourth Doctor, the Key to Time arc, where they had like 4 or 5 stories that were all, their own 4-ish part stories that had to deal with getting the pieces to the Key to Time. They've literally done that before.
Yeah, and honestly, I feel like that would work well for a modern Doctor Who episode. Honestly, it's something that would work really well for the current era, just because Chibnall has that very like questy fantasy kind of vibes, so that has added that to the show.
Do the Ghost Monument, but good this time, Chibnall.
It's like I would prefer something like this in like a season. I know it would get tired, but so far we've had a lot of mystery box stuff where it's either dropped or occasionally that plot will move forward, but like, no, what if we all know what this is building towards? I don't know, I suppose you could argue that's happened with Trenzalore, but not really in any real sense. But yeah, it was just something, it was nice to see in a microcosm of an episode that is just like, hey, yeah, you can keep this type of thing interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, with Trenzalore, it's just like, they just sort of end up there at a certain point. In my mind, it's like,
also, it was really disappointing.
Where every episode,
Trenzalore was
exactly.
really fucking disappointing.
Just have a season where every episode is like they're tracking down another piece of like X artifact that they need to get, and so they're just like each episode they're finding a piece and then they have some whole adventure related to that. I think that would be a really cool idea for a season.
But yeah, no, and yeah, so yeah, there's I don't know if we're gonna like go full plot rundown, because I guess we'll go through the sections. So they meet Balthazar. The Doctor defeats him with a fungus-covered spoon, which just made me feel like it was for like it made me feel like that like the 12's fucking spoon in Robot of Sherwood had some weird like fucking virus on it that like could have fucking killed Robin. Like in hindsight, it's like, oh god.
It was actually a master plan that didn't work out, and they just didn't tell us.
Yeah.
Darn.
Then you have your opening credits. Somehow, the robotic bird that Balthazar has is able to grab the TARDIS. So, like, I guess they weren't in the vortex. Because if they were in the vortex, the only people who have that fucking power are the Time Lords. Like,
yeah, there's two instances.
The only people who had that power.
There's like two main, almost egregious incidents of, yeah, this happens because plot, and we need to have it go this way.
Yeah.
That's probably one of them, but whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Let's see what's next. See, oh yeah, I forgot. It's not actually, Balthazar doesn't force them at first. It's he has the robot bird pretend like he has to get them going off and doing stuff for him. So then they go and find the oil pirates, which actually, I don't know, how much are either of you familiar with my favorite band of all time, Gorillaz?
Not
I
at all.
have listened to like 2 songs.
Okay, because I was thinking, like, because the band has, because they're a virtual band, they have this huge art presence from Jamie Hewlett, and I was thinking, like, it's not exactly how they're drawn, it is just the idea of, like, skeleton oil space pirates that sounds like something Jamie Hewlett would come up with and draw, and would be really rad.
Yeah, it was definitely visually very interesting. Just the design of the pirates and like the design of their ship and the world. It was just, yeah. I also like the idea of like, yeah, you know, their oil companies still exist in the far future, except now they're just like extracting whole entire planets worth of oil, and
Yeah.
also they still do wars for it.
Yeah. Um. Also, the fact, yeah. So there's like the line, yeah. So there's one the captain who's alive, and then, oh yeah. Also the fact that like they even put in like a dig at like fossil fuels and like oil is not a sustainable resource.
True.
For, you know, gotta give those morals to the kids. Also the fact that like it's revealed that like almost everyone who isn't the captain are like skeletons in spacesuits, and like what's the line? What's the line?
Saves
that he
on
has?
rationing or something like that. I think the captain says.
Yeah, I think so. Something like that.
Yeah, also, the reason this particular section stuck in my mind is because the captain is named Calico, which is the name of one of my partners. So, haha.
Is it spelled? Because here
No,
it's
it's not-
spelled Kaliko.
Yeah, no, theirs is spelled with a C at the beginning, but haha, shout out to them. You're a space pirate captain now.
And then she gets fucking murked too. Like one of the coolest characters just gets fucking murked by Balthazar. Shit sucks, yo.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, then they go into the Mantis people, which I think is probably like that's probably the weakest plot thread, where it's just like, okay, it's Mantis people.
Crab people, crab people,
crab people.
Yeah, honestly, I don't even remember what happens in this one because I watched it
Yeah.
a week ago, and this one just has not stuck in my brain at all.
Yeah. Oh yes, and then they move on to the Rick and Morty series 2 finale, Space Prison,
Nice.
which is, yeah. I like how like the Doctor just immediately gets locked up for like I think like over 1,000 different like minor charges.
And then
Which is
also
great.
the few counts of like planet destroying or something.
Like the actual
like-
horrible shit he did during the Time War.
It's like 17, 18. No, and this is the great thing is this is before Moffat, so he doesn't just get to say I'm the Doctor and then everything works out.
Also, oh my god, you know what's really funny? There's the line 2 billion years in prison, and if you count each individual technical teleport clone of the Doctor from Heaven Sent, he spends about 2 billion years in there.
Yeah.
I had that exact same thought when that was happening.
unintentional. Completely unintentional. But thinking about it just now, I'm like, oh.
So he did his sentence after all, except punching through Crystal.
Yeah. Oh man. Anyways, then he like gets this like robot out of prison, I guess, who turns out to be the actual runner of this like prison planet thingy.
That's probably the biggest case of like coincidence.
Yeah, it's pretty like okay, I guess. This is like the biggest like yeah, we have to wrap this up in like 5 minutes, so like hurry it up, guys. We don't have time for anything fancy here.
Yeah, it's very just and then the story ended. Next one.
Moving on. And then like the fact that like not then they find him, then they go and confront the guy who turns out to be like an imposter and like a convict. Then the actual robot warden freaks the fuck out. And then like it's so weird because there's like this really tense moment where it's like, how do I stop it? How do I stop it? And then he immediately fixes it. Like literally.
Yeah, that happened, and I was just like,
okay. I feel like something should have gone there, but sure, I guess. Then Balthazar shows up and forces them to go to the Infinite. I like the idea that it's... I like the idea that it's... When they say your heart's desire, they literally mean like a... Oh, I'm gonna make the cursed literature reference, but like the Mirror of Era said. I'm sorry, I couldn't think of another really easy analog. Does someone have one that isn't from the turf in chief?
it works.
Yeah. Whatever.
I don't know. Succubus Bible
Martha's
reference.
Hearts.
I'm really failing my theology teachers right now, but yeah, let's go with that.
And Martha's heart's desire is the doctor. Sexual tension.
It's interesting how many times they like hold each other really close, and it's not just like Martha like being like clingy against the doctor. They're just like both right up on each other, and I don't know if that's like some loss of the nuance in animation, but it's just like, okay, Ten, I understand you not getting the picture in the live action, but like this is like in your face, and it's for kids, sure. Like that's probably why, but it was just one of the few things that made me go like, okay.
Yeah. So yeah, and then Balthazar. Oh, actually, no. Balthazar doesn't die. He gets thrown in prison, I guess, because that would be too dark. That would be too dark for kids. Even though leaving him the falling apart ship would have actually been like a fucking baller ending, dude. So yeah. I feel like this episode. I feel like this is another case of like, yeah, it's perfectly good 7 out of 10 Doctor Who. I guess as my rating, like, yeah, it's not bad. It's clearly Doctor Who. It doesn't feel too neutered by the fact that it was on CBBC versus BBC. My complaint is mainly that it's the segmentation, there isn't long enough for each segment really for it all to shine, but otherwise it's good, man. 7 out of 10. Not bad. Thumbs up.
Hell yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. If anything, the only thing I want more of, or the only thing this could have done better, is if it like took advantage of the medium more, and I guess like I don't know. The big takeaway I took from all of this is that I wish Doctor Who did animation more.
Yeah.
I know that's kind of something that only really huge franchises do, is like segment up their media.
We do have one more, I believe, in the specials, because we have Dreamland. Yeah, we have Dreamland. I mean, that one doesn't... That one's, if I remember correctly, that one's 3D, and, like, not as good as, like, the kind of 2D sort of flash animation look as this, but, you know, whatever. We'll get to it. We'll get to that at some point soon.
Yeah, fair enough. So, yeah, it's, I don't know, it's as you said, it's probably neutered a little bit by the fact of, like, how they chopped it up, and it just, there's so many, like, moments of Saturday morning cartoon syndrome where it's just like, oh, we gotta cut it off now, and, like, I think the most egregious thing that we didn't really even talk about, that, like, the Doctor is stranded far in the future without his TARDIS, and he's just able to make it to, like, arguably at the beginning of the Time Lords to before the Time Lords by teaching this bird, or fixing this bird up, to go faster than light. I'm just like, that's a little dumb. Like, that's a little...
much about it.
But yeah, everything else was good. Voice acting was good. The amount of world building they managed to do in each place, despite the limited amount of time, was, like, actually pretty impressive and pretty efficient. So yeah, 7 out of 10.
Yeah. Alright.
Yeah, I would say, like, it's generally a pretty interesting episode, but at the same time, it didn't stick with me too much.
Yeah.
And there was nothing that really, like, grabbed me, or I felt was, like, you know, besides the animation aspects of it, which are, I expected from an animated episode of a regularly live-action show, like,
yeah,
you know, those were interesting and cool and new, but beyond that, there's really not much to this episode, so, like, 6 out of 10.
So yeah, I guess now we move on to our other segment. So yeah, this week we are discussing Torchwood, Series 1, Episode 7, Greek-Sparing Gifts, I believe by Toby Whithouse. I watched half this episode this week, or at least, well, I paid attention to half the episode this week, and then I went back through and watched it again earlier today. So, Avery, I will let you do the content warning on this one because you watched it, all of it, more recently.
Yes. Okay, so content warning for murder, violation of consent slightly, I guess. Trying to rack my brains on this one. Fucking aliens, I guess.
Yeah. A bad joke. A bad joke.
Ooh, right, transphobia. Ooh.
Well,
Ooh.
yeah, a very offhanded joke that, I don't know. I assume, I'll have to look at the transcript again, but after thinking about it, I came up with, like, at least a headcanon to assume good intentions, and it was, like, 2006, but yeah, not the best. Anyways, so yeah, this is a very Tosh-centric episode, which is good because she hadn't gotten too much screen time before now.
Yeah.
And centers around this artifact that that artifact that is given to Tosh by a mysterious woman named Mary that enables Tosh to read people's thoughts, and how she doesn't really cope well with that at all.
And also apparently brings out her gay side.
It's Torchwood, everyone's gay.
Yeah, by this episode, every main character has had a same-sex kiss. Or same-gender kiss.
Shit, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right.
Wait, when did Ianto?
Oh
With
wait,
Jack.
has Ionta's thing with Jack started yet? When did
In,
Ionta's thing with Jack start?
I believe it was in the Cyber Woman.
Was it? I don't think it was in Cyberwoman.
Hold on.
I think it's a little bit later in the season.
Yeah, I can't remember anything happening between those two.
Yeah, it says.
I mean, I know it's coming.
It says in the story notes that
So far,
Jack and Ianto and Cyberwoman, although Ianto was apparently dead on that occasion. So, maybe we'll chalk that up to a technically.
honestly, so far in my mind, Yanto is the other guy.
Yeah, he only really kind of shows up to do like one-liners in series 1. Aside from Cyberwoman, like he doesn't really have quite the he doesn't have the any of that quite yet.
Anyways, this episode is pretty fucking good,
yeah,
honestly.
I'll let you take the lead on that, since like you have a lot more yeah, I feel like you have a lot more to say about this than I do, and you watched it in a much less fragmented fashion.
Yeah, I honestly like enjoyed this episode quite a fucking bit.
Yeah, no, it's
until,
yeah.
Until that one joke.
Yeah.
Yeah. But just like, I don't know, this episode like grabbed me pretty quickly because obviously it was a character we hadn't seen a lot of, so I was like, oh, I wonder what her deal is. And then the Mary is hot. I won't lie, she has good fashion. That one outfit, the skirt with the like
the one she has at the end of the episode,
the leather jacket. No, the one she has in the middle of the episode when she comes over to Tasha's place. That outfit was poppin', won't lie. Anyways, yeah, it's a pretty interesting setup because you get sort of the cold open in the past thing of the British soldier hunting down the prostitute, and then the prostitute gets taken over by an alien and then rips his fucking heart out. And so then you have that sort of background, and then going into it, you sort of know the background of the mystery somewhat. You don't know exactly it's an alien.
I don't think it's shown that she rips his heart out in the cold open.
No, it doesn't. But like you can infer when they find the body.
No, but it's supposed. Well, no, actually, because
that's what I inferred watching it.
Okay, well, because you have the thing. What it does is he shoots her, and then it cuts off, and then they find the corpse, and you think it's supposed to be her, because they're like, oh, it's from the 1800s, and there's something that looks like a gunshot wound, and then like
I did not get that at all.
And then it like pans out, and then you see like the modern her kind of standing behind the crime scene tape, and then that cuts to the credits. So it's like the mystery of like, well, if she died, how is she there?
I did not get that at all, because I immediately understood that she had been like taken over by an alien and probably like immediately attacked the guy. I can see how it was supposed to be set up that way, but I don't know, I guess I'm just too big brained for that cold open.
Avery having these
too powerful.
Avery having these god tier episode reads, damn.
I just saw straight through the trickery. But yeah, it was a very interesting setup. And then, obviously she shows up and she's like, hey, have this fucking necklace, you can hear thoughts now. And I was like, damn, that's kind of sus. That's like really sus.
Imagine that sliding into your DMs, damn.
Yeah, and I'm like, damn, Tasha's kind of not the brightest here. She just sort of like takes this girl at her word and just like, yeah, this is legit. She's just giving me this super powerful alien artifact just for whatever. She just wants me to have it. Totally just gonna fuck her. And it's just, I don't know. That was not the brightest, but at the same time, it sets up the episode, so I don't care too much. And just sort of their whole dynamic over the whole episode is like pretty good. There's a good little back and forth there. You sort of get to know Tosh, and it's clear pretty quickly how much she's manipulating Tosh because she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, your friends hate you." Ooh.
Yeah, no, it is. I think it's like a pretty good. I mean, says the person who hasn't like actually been in any serious relationship, but I feel like it's a pretty good portrayal of like an abusive relationship.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, that's immediately the vibes I got. Just like it's very much the isolation tactic. Um, Shit, we should have put a content warning for that. It didn't occur to me until just now.
Rip.
Oh well.
Warning. I like how this
Yeah.
continues to show that there's everyone in Torchwood is kind of like fucked in their own separate ways. They're professional, but like also because of the nature of their work, their personal shit absolutely get involved with their professional shit because no one can understand. What I'm saying is therapy in a lot of sci-fi shows would make things happen a lot quicker.
Yeah, no, they really need to have like an on-staff therapist or something, but they don't. Honestly, I feel like probably a lot of things would be like a lot. Like when you think about it, a lot of things in Torchwood would be like, yeah, that would work a lot better if they had like an on-site therapist.
Okay, this is totally a complete digression, but the idea of like people in like magical / sci-fi worlds having therapists made me remember of exactly one series that does actually do that. Like very briefly mentions it. There's this book series called Demonata where there's like a whole universe of demons that like come over into the world and fuck people up sometimes, and it's just sort of like offhandedly mentioned at one point that there's like a couple therapists in the world that like have had experiences with them, so they like work with people who like had their family slaughtered by demons. So that was just an interesting thought that like this is completely random, but you just made me think of that, and I'm like, yeah, that would probably help in a lot of series just to have people who are therapists that are like experienced with that.
Oh yeah, and there's also Tosh kind of dealing with the fallout of Gwen and Owen's season-long oopsie.
Oopsies.
That's what we call it in the biz.
At least to be fair, while he's still like really shitty to Tosh. Like the interactions that Gwen and Owen have in this episode are probably some of the like least obnoxious Owen has been ever.
Yeah.
So
I like how we're getting to the Rose did not annoy me level of memery with Owen.
Yeah. I didn't hate Owen this week. Yay.
Yeah, I mean, he was just pretty all right in this episode. He just had a good back and forth with Gwen. Those two just had the big sexual tension going, and Tosh like, accidentally but also not accidentally spying on their thoughts. And like, damn, that's kind of fucked. But like also, they're kind of being dumb too. This is sort of
yeah,
the whole
no,
thing.
I really like how like this episode presents that like yes, people think of like shitty, fucked up things in their head and things that people weren't meant to hear, but that doesn't mean that they're bad people. Like their brains just kind of deal with it and they have to sort of mentally filter it out, which is a real thing. Like you're not necessarily a bad person for mentally just kind of having those stray like whack ass thoughts go through your head.
Yeah, it's a decent exploration of that idea.
Like it's so easy, and even Tosh does it, and Mary, like the villain in this case, even tries to like try and be like the humans are the real monsters thing with the necklace. But I feel like Jack at the end of the episode kind of rebuts that and is like, no.
Speaking of Jack, I like how this series kind of does a lot more with what he is than kind of just the Doctor Who explanation of you're a fixed point. And here we see like the weird ways in which that manifests. It's not just like, oh, I can like be shot and come back and like all this weird shit. Like there's side effects which are like helpful to him, but like even me knowing what's actually going on, I'm just like, oh shit, like how really does that work? Like, which is pretty cool.
Yeah. Also, like, the fact that, like, Tosh just can't read his mind if he's not consciously reaching out to her. And even he doesn't really know why that works. He just knows that it does. And he knows that, like, she was in there.
Damn it, Rose.
I do really like the cinematography during like the scene just before the climax of the episode, where like Tosh is clearly sort of downward spiraling, and you can see that like at this point Mary basically has all the control, and the way the kind of cinematography like feels claustrophobic and
it's suffocating.
Suffocating. Yeah.
Yeah, you really feel the tension in that last few parts, and you feel like the distress Tosh is under. It's a very well-directed episode in general, honestly. Like, this is just a really solid episode.
Owen. Yeah, I like, and also the other thing that I like is that Owen is not only not obnoxious, he actually like gets something to do. Like
he has like a role in this episode.
Yeah, he actually has a point. Good job,
people
Owen.
Doing their jobs
in Torchwood. Amazing. Yeah, then we get the one throwaway yikes joke from Jack, which, man, if it was worded slightly differently, I could read it as him being like, oh, hey, maybe I should pay more attention to my teammates so I can help them out if they're in a rough spot or need someone to talk to or something.
Yeah, literally, if he were
just slightly different.
Yeah, it's just really how he landed the joke that was just like, bro.
Yeah, it's specifically the wording of, since then I've always been a little nervous when a friend behaves out of... It is literally the word nervous that does it.
I mean, honestly, it was also just... It's just... like... I mean, honestly, that's really the word that sinks it. But like, even the sort of using the wrong pronouns and dead
oh
name,
yeah, that's true. I didn't think about that. Yeah, that's really bad.
Which is kind of weird because you think like 51st century Jack, you know, will do anything that moves and wants him, would be a bit up and up, but also out of universe reasons. You know.
Yeah, 2006 Brits are...
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll take a McYikes with that milkshake.
It's not like... It's not like a Gareth Roberts thing where, like, we can definitively pigeonhole... Like, I feel like, at least in this case, there is kind of a chance that maybe they're not... like, the person nowadays isn't completely... shitty, and it was just a throwaway joke from years ago that because that was still socially acceptable all those years ago.
To be fair, you'd probably still get that joke on British TV today.
Yeah.
Honestly, who am I kidding? You'd get it on American TV today too.
Yeah, no, if that joke was happening today, I would cut it significantly less slack than I do in this case.
It's bad. It's bad. It's a bad joke. And honestly, it really like ruined like the flow of the
Yeah.
episode to me. It just like completely took me out of it because I was like, Jack wouldn't make that joke. Like, come on, he's from the 51st century. Like,
Yeah.
come on. Homie has seen aliens. Like, you're telling me what really gets him is the existence of trans people?
Yeah.
Like, bro.
That's just straight up
Nah.
not
And
the
he probably
case.
lives in a super like transhumanism, get whatever fucking body mods you want. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, totally.
I think that you can just chalk this up to like the times, because it really makes no sense if you think about it, which still sucks, but like,
Yeah. It's like, it's genuinely like episode, like, flow of the episode destroying joke levels of bad.
Yeah. It's like almost nailing the landing and then tripping and eating shit on the pavement.
Like, because with the doctor's transphobic joke, it was like just very throwaway. Like, he just sort of said it while something larger was happening. So it was bad, and it definitely caught my attention. But the episode just sort of like kept sailing, and I just like, it was just sort of a thing that added on to the general pile of shit. But with this episode, it's like it's a very good episode that just focuses, like, this is actually like a legitimate moment of like important dialogue within the episode, and it's just like it veers into that, and it feels like the episode just takes like a massive swerve into a car crash.
It's
Yeah,
like you almost had it. You almost had it.
but after that, the episode's pretty good.
Yeah.
Yeah, just yeah. The end of the episode is really good. The sort of hostage situation, the back and forth, and then Jack's little trick, beaming her into the fucking sun, which is pretty. That's pretty fucking brutal, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's
Like,
that's definitely a like, yeah, that's what Jack be like now. That's how he do.
like, Jesus, like, at least you're gonna die fucking instantly because it's like 10 billion degrees in the center of the sun.
whereas
You
if it was
literally just
10,
be
he
like,
would beam him into a prison planet, beam her into into a
yeah,
prison planet.
Yeah.
conservatives versus liberals.
uh and then he has a really nice discussion with uh with Tosh, which is like that what I was kind of talking about, where like they avoid kind of just sort of being nihilistic, like, oh, humans are the real monsters, with what Jack says, like, yeah, he's like, things people aren't meant to know, and yeah, I think it's yeah, I think that last scene really caps off the episode really well, and yeah.
Yep.
So
All
yeah,
right.
I think, yeah, it's a really solid episode, and I can definitely say that, even though it was really, I didn't watch this in the most optimal fashion, but yeah, I'd give it a pretty solid 8.
Yeah, I'd give it an 8 too. The joke was definitely the only thing I was just like, oh, I wish that wasn't in here. And
Like, oh no.
people are valid to feel however they want about it, unless transphobia is like really bad in a piece of fiction. It usually doesn't like ding it a lot for me. The timing of it helps. If this came out today, I'd be like,
Yeah.
no, I'm calling this bullshit, which it still is, but so 8 out of 10 for me.
All right.
Yeah. Oh God. I I don't know if the joke is bad enough for me to dock it. Like overall, I think I'm feeling a 9 out of 10 just because the episode is like really good. Just for
That's
me
fair.
personally, I enjoyed it a shitload. It might have been higher if not for the joke. I'm not sure. Like in my head, I'm not like docking it, but it could be affecting my opinion. I don't know. It was a really good episode. I enjoyed it a lot. I thought all the characters in this episode were really good. Except Yanto. He's not really there. Who the fuck gives a shit about Yanto? But like
Yeah.
Jack, his moments were really solid. He has the whole like mystery dude thing going. Tosh was like really good and sympathetic character. Mary was an interesting villain, not your typical villain, just, very much leverages personal individual manipulation. And then Owen and Gwen have their whole shit going on this episode that's like, it's pretty funny, honestly. I'm not gonna say, like, it's funny. It's funny.
And they don't explicitly fuck this episode, so,
No, they did off screen.
They do off screen. Yeah, they do off screen, but like they don't. It's more the aftermath of that, and not explicitly like them fucking.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
It's
But,
more
like, yeah.
their grown relationship.
Overall, yeah, I'd say 9 out of 10. 9 out of 10. Pretty good. Pretty good.
All right. So next week we are going to be talking about. I think we have a two-parter next week, right? Because I believe we are talking about.
Manhattan.
Aha! Yes, we are.
The Daleks in
talking
Manhattan.
about Daleks in Manhattan and evolution of the Daleks.
Oh
Which is gonna
boy,
be
what a stinker.
Yeah, I feel like we're probably going to be kind of divided on that one. I know one of our listeners, Petra, actually liked it, but I haven't seen it in a while, so who knows?
Maybe the old-timey New York accents and convoluted Dalek plot will have aged gracefully.
All I know is I'm excited to see the Amazing Spider-Man and that one guy from the Phantom Menace in it.
Yeah. Anyways, until then, you can follow the podcast on Twitter at B2TARDISPod. You can also now support us on Patreon to get episodes early, listen in to the show live, and potentially get access to a bonus episode that we will probably be recording at some point soon, which about the TV movie, oh boy, which will be coming out somewhat soon for Patreon people. Until then, I am on Twitter at WheelieDL.
And I'm on Twitter at SkyHigh9_5.
I am on Twitter at Feet Detector.
No joke this week?
Oh, I don't know. You guys didn't say your names, so I didn't want to ruin that flow. I don't know. It felt weird.
Fair
I had
enough.
a joke, but
Go ahead. Go ahead.
This is the titty monster that Luke drinks from in The Last Jedi, and my Twitter is at Feet Detector.
That's fair.
Okay. And we'll see you all next week.